Once again, you've found yourself 60 miles from anywhere. If you'd like to support this channel, please go to my website at 60milesfromanywhere.com and buy me a coffee. There's a link down below. If you're also interested, I'm an affiliate with Origin USA, which sells quality boots, martial arts equipment, and jeans. So I wear Origin boots myself. I have the American Bison boots with the big lugs. They're pretty cool, and they take me everywhere, including this last place that I'm going to talk about today. This story is about hosteling in Dublin. The idea was to save some money for my 10-day excursion into Ireland. Dublin is very expensive. Hotels start around $200 per night, and vacation rentals aren't much cheaper. For around €90, I could rent a room in somebody's house in the suburbs, but for €35 per night, I could get a bed in a hostel. I'd never stayed in a hostel, and outside of PBS travel shows or Eli Roth movies, I had only a vague idea of what to expect. I'm an introvert and well into my 40s. Hostels used to be called youth hostels. They were reserved for primarily students traveling and partying across Europe, and I am neither. What I am is cheap. I see no reason to spend €200 for a bed for one night, when twice that got me a week's stay at an Airbnb in the Irish countryside. And no, I'm not sponsored by Airbnb. It's just what I used. When I travel, much of it is for the experiences, and staying at a hostel would certainly be an experience. I figured whatever it was, I could stand it for just a couple of nights. Besides, from what I have heard, it was a great way to meet other travelers and to be social. Nope. I picked a hostel right next to the river on the Aston Quay in Dublin. Just outside was the bus stop, which was always occupied by the usual cadre of folks you find at bus stops. Chain smokers and homeless people standing on the pavement waiting for their bus. Vagrants sitting against the wall. Sketchy-looking teenagers mad-dogging anyone who made eye contact between drags on their vape pens. Inside, the hostel was on the edge of being worn out, like a couch in a frat house. My dorm was still being prepared, so I was invited to stow my pack in their luggage room, which bore the heavy, humid aroma of a high school locker room funk. I walked around the neighborhood, finally unencumbered by my pack. I grabbed a bite to eat in the Temple Bar area at a fish and chips place that had just opened for the day. Leo Burdock's claimed to be the world famous. It was okay. When they eventually got around to serving my order, the vinegar bottle at the table leaked all over the place. The chips were plentiful, if not bland, and the PA system blasted oldies from the 50s and 60s. Elvis, Roy Orbison, Dion. Like a lot of the Dublin I was experiencing, I found a chunk of America instead. This place was more in line with a 50s nostalgia diner from 1993. Most of the bars and pubs I passed by that played live music dished out whatever was playing on the radio 10 years ago or more. Covers of Coldplay, John Denver and his Country Roads, Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline. The big buzz was that Garth Brooks was going to be playing that weekend. By then, I would be across the country on the wild Atlantic Way. The streets of Dublin, particularly the Temple Bar area, are paved with cobblestones, which lose their charm after the first light drizzle that makes them frictionless surfaces to walk on. The good news is a lot of these streets are for foot traffic only, so you won't get run over by cars or buses, just the droves of American tourists taking selfies in front of the pubs, or stepping over the homeless people in their path. The warren of narrow streets and alleys are interesting in the landscape in which nothing is wasted. Down just about any alley is a shop or cafe or bodega. Trinket stores and souvenir shops are as plentiful as the bars with their overinflated prices. The scent of burnt ship grease wafts down the dirty streets, mingling with the briny, dank smell of the river that cuts the city in half. I got settled in at my hostel and stuffed my pack into a cage under the bed, locking it in with my TSA luggage lock. Bunk beds, hard mattresses like summer camp. I figure you get what you pay for. I went back out to see what was happening in the city, hitting lots of the must-do places I had read about online. Haypenny Bridge, Temple Bar, Molly Malone and her polished breasts selling cockles and mussels, alive, alive-o. And the sun set on a Tuesday evening, the streets filled with people going from bar to bar. Pubs are loud and crowded, and unlike the charming version Hollywood gives out about traditional music at every turn, I didn't want to drink a €7 pint of Guinness to the dulcet tunes of early 2000s pop music cover bands. I stepped into a cafe, which had closed their kitchen for the day, but they were still serving drinks and desserts. The fish and chips hadn't held me over all that long, nor did the bag of sweet chili Tato crisps and iron brew I picked up at a bodega earlier. The Guinness hit hard, going right to my head as I sat in the cafe, and that place was nearly as empty as my stomach. A young couple at another table were sharing a dessert on a date. The Guinness was amazing. From what they told me, though, it didn't travel well. The Brick Alley Cafe gets its Guinness at the same time as the Temple Bar, so it's some of the freshest in town, without the crowds and bad live music. Even the pubs outside of Dublin don't have Guinness as fresh as this. I chased it with a delicious dessert, but only the recollection of it I have is from pictures I took of it on my phone. I got a hot cup of black tea next in hopes it would sober me up some. I let myself drift, people watching, taking in the sights and experiencing the nightlife of city center Dublin. By 11 p.m. I was tired, my legs aching from 13 hours in a plane, followed by walking on brick-paved streets all day. I headed back to the hostel and found the other 10 beds in the room now had occupants, mostly young people keeping to themselves and not speaking to anyone in a dark room. Everyone here was trying to go to sleep at 11 p.m. The windows were closed and the shades were drawn. Someone had decided to contain the breath of a dozen strangers on a humid late summer night, all very strange in a post-COVID world. I could hear the crowds of laughing bar hoppers, breaking glass, fights breaking out and dispersed, all the way until 4 a.m. I hardly slept at all between the noise outside and the chronic coughing, stirring, and snoring of my antisocial dorm mates inside. At 6 a.m., I was awake again, and with just a couple hours of sleep under my belt, I grabbed my camera from my locker and headed out into the streets to get some city photography as the sun was coming up. The city is different in the early morning. Street crews and dustmen sweep the broken glass and debris off the pavements. Workers are headed to their jobs, stepping over the aftermath of a place that made Vegas seem tame on a Tuesday night.